If you're reading this, and if you're wondering, no, I do not know this man, or thing, or whatever it is, or why it has been coming to my house and knocking on my door on the last 4 previous nights. All I know is that whatever it is, I do not want it around me. And I'm pretty sure after reading this, you wouldn't either. So for some backstory, I just bought my house recently. Nothing special, not too big or small. I mean, it's not small, but it's not too big either. Just your average 2-floor house. I'm painting this situation because this is the kind of place where the neighbors would decorate their houses and lights and some other Christmas crap on their lawns, houses, property, you name it. Yep, my house is not some desperate apartment building or some house in the middle of nowhere. It's right here. Just a house in some ordinary neighborhood town in Washington. The first time that it came was 4 days ago, on Christmas Eve at 10 p.m. I was in my office, which was in my room, working on a document, when I heard a knock at my door, and the characteristic voice of someone who seems to be playing Santa laughing. Ho, ho, ho! Not some evil chuckle or anything other malicious sound. It sounded exactly like a regular, jolly, happy laugh. The kind of laugh you would hear Santa laughing in any media or cartoon. I just brushed it off as some fundraising thing, or it's just a weirdo in a Santa costume playing pranks on anyone, and decided not to open the door. I mean, I was extremely busy after all, and I'm obviously no kid who believes that Santa was real. I was a grown man who was wise and knew better. Out of curiosity, I peeked out my window, watching as the quote-unquote man dressed up in the Santa costume walking down the street. Off the bat, there is 2 very suspicious things about him. First of all, he was just walking alone down the street. Normally, if this was actually Santa, he wouldn't be walking down the street, but instead riding on a sleigh that had flying reindeer that helped him go to places. Now, this is real life, and there is no such thing as that actually happening. Hell, Rudolph isn't even real. Just fictional fairy tale. Getting too off topic, but back to the man. I didn't get a look at his face, but there was no way he looked like an actual old man. Hell, he didn't even look fat. Second of all, he didn't knock on any other doors. I watched the man as he walked past every other door until disappearing at a turn. Despite the obscurity of this, it was still a pretty surprising sight to see Santa outside my house. But nothing that I thought about it for too long. Now, you may be wondering, it's just some guy dressing up as Santa just promoting the happiest times of the holidays. Well, it didn't come back again until the following night. And this is where the detour to oh my god, hell to the freaking no territory begins. I had a friend named Mark. He doesn't live too far away from me. He lives at the edge of town of the neighborhood that I live in. So it was on Christmas night, and I was out with him after eating a nice Christmas meal with him at some restaurant. We decided we would both watch some action shows on Amazon Prime. And about halfway into the second episode of the show we were watching, I heard a knock at the door, and a jolly happy Santa laugh that said, ho, 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 followed. Mark was quick to react. The heck? I remember him whispering to me. I hadn't told him about the first time it happened. I didn't deem it noteworthy at all. I looked at him without saying anything and just put a finger up to my lips. It was barely even a conscious decision. It almost felt instinctive at the time. I got up from the couch and made my way over to the door. Quietly, I looked through the peephole, seeing the same man in the Santa Claus outfit from before, looking closely, it was wearing a mask. I don't know, I still couldn't see its face. I really wanted to ignore it, but at the time, I just thought it was actually some dude trying to be like Santa. I mean, I don't know, but he looked suspicious, and what if he wasn't right? In any case, I reluctantly opened the door. The man didn't move or say anything at first, so I asked him something along the lines of, "Sir, why are you in that Santa costume? And why are you at my door?" No response. I then asked again, "Sir, is there anything wrong? Like, are you okay?" No response again. Alright then. I turned around to face Mark and asked what he was thinking. No response for him either. In fact, he looked terrifying. "Is there anything wrong, Mark?" I asked him. "Don't look at it!" he yelled at me in fear. "Close the goddamn door!" His sudden outburst made me jump, but I did what he said. "Bro, what the hell was that?" I asked him. He shook his head, still sporting the same horrific expression. I don't know," he said. I looked back through the people, but the only thing I saw was the man in the Santa outfit walking away. I spent the night trying to convince Mark to just tell me what he'd seen, but his response was always the same. "I don't know." At a point, Mark just screamed at me to stop as he yelled, "I told you already, alright? I don't know!" That was all I could get out of him. He just didn't know. Whatever the hell that meant. Mark left immediately the next morning, and it was pretty obvious to me that I won't come back to see him again for a while. I did get a parting text from him. Thought, if it comes back, don't open the door. You know, safe to say, I was reasonably disturbed. Was Mark playing a prank on me? Seems rather elaborate, if you ask me. That couldn't be it. Mark never done anything like that before. Hell, Mark didn't seem to be that kind of guy that would play pranks on others. Besides, he seemed genuinely terrifying, but it was the only explanation that I could muster up at the time. So I went with it. Whenever I would talk to Mark after that, he never brought it up again. I thought that Mark was just trying to pretend like he had nothing to do with it, and had something bigger planned for me later on. I decided to go along with it as well. The following night came, and I mentally prepared myself for anything that Mark was intending to pull. I decided to stay in order to get some work done, and I was also busy with the many Godzilla collectibles I have that I was managing on my shelves, and it was around midnight, and I was ready to head downstairs to play some Astro Bot on my PlayStation 5 before bed. And then I heard it. Ho ho ho! Now, if Mark was the one doing this, then he would have wanted me to ignore it, but I could catch him off guard if I actually opened a door, right? The man was probably one of his relatives or something. Maybe his grandfather? I don't know. If that's the case, it's weird that he's making him join him to, like, quote-unquote, surprise me. Hey, any of this scare actually surprised me, I suppose. I looked through my peephole, once again, seeing the man in the Santa costume. I forced myself to laugh. Why are you trying to be like Santa Claus, Gramps? Is Mark making you do this? I jokingly asked the man through the door. What a mistake that was. Ho, ho, ho! The same jolly laugh was repeated louder this time. It caught me so off guard, but I couldn't place why and chuckled a bit. I was going to say something in response, but then I thought about it. The laughter didn't seem to come from the man's mouth, but from more of a general area behind him, if you get what I'm saying. I didn't react, continued to look through, having no idea what to anticipate or knowing what else I could say to the man. Ho! 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 The laugh was deafening the third time. I was jolted backwards before scrambling onto the couch. What the hell? I thought to myself. I remained stiff for the next few moments, petrified at whatever the hell was standing on my doorstep. I waited and waited, but nothing happened. Eventually, just before I turned around to go upstairs to my room, I saw the police lights flashing outside. They rang my doorbell and started asking me questions. "Have you seen anything disturbing recently?" sends one of the policemen. Well, I think some weirdo is trying to make me believe he was Santa, but no, not really. What was I supposed to say to him? When I asked the cop why they come, they responded by telling me that the father from the family, who is from a block of my house, had called them, saying that he, his wife, and his son had saw something, quote-unquote, horrible standing at my door. No descriptions beyond that, just something horrible. The cops eventually decided that the family was just in mass hysteria, but to call if anything else happened. I thanked them and they left. The next day, I went to the family's house and rang the doorbell, hoping to get some answers. I could hear somebody moving around inside, but nobody ever came. Looks like they didn't want to tell me anything either. I now can relate what happened to Mark, as he was understandably shocked. If this was a prank, then there was no way that he was going to call it off at this point. This brings me to yesterday night. I can now safely say now that this was never a prank. I was in an Uber car coming home after going to a birthday party hosted by one of my friends off town. As we pulled up to my house, I was preparing to happily stumble out, ready to retire inside my house after having a quiet night with the Uber said something that froze my blood. "Is that Santa standing at your door there?" he asked me. I didn't turn to face what he was referring to. "Keep driving," I told him. He started asking what was going on, but I cut it immediately. "Just keep driving!" "Pal, I picked you up to bring you home. Why are you asking me to keep driving?" The Uber driver asked me again, not listening to my suggestion. "Please, keep driving!" I shouted at the driver, begging him to start the car and go, but the guy wouldn't frickin' go. "Pal, why should I keep driving? It's just some man in a Santa outfit. It's not even Christmas anymore, so I have no idea what in the hell he's doing out here, but you can't just go get out of my car to reason with him. Please, keep driving!" I yelled at him again. "Pal, I don't care. You have no choice. Either get out of my car or..." He stopped before he could finish what he was saying when he looked back at the window. My head was still facing away from whatever the hell was standing at my door. But I could hear the Uber driver's breathing begin to tense. His breathing slowly turned into muttering before muttered out, "Frick!" before he made the most haunting, blood-curdling scream louder than how I can imagine someone screaming on the top of their lungs as the driver slammed his foot onto the gas. I barely had time to react. My head slammed the seat as he took off. I looked over to look at the Uber, witnessing this traumatized expression as he sped away. "What did you see?" I yelled at him. "What did you see at my door?" All that he responded was incoherent blabbering. At moments, I could make out, "No, didn't see," in his speech, along with some slurs as well. I was so terrified, horrified, and all shocked and confused what I witnessed from a driver that I was so focused on trying to get him to talk that I didn't even notice where we were going. And then, suddenly, I felt the impact. When I woke up from a knockout to my head, which I think felt like 10 minutes, I noticed that the Uber driver has driven us to a local wooded area in the woods. I had my seatbelt on, so I was mostly fine. The Uber driver, on the other hand, was still knocked unconscious. I got my phone and dialed 911 and told them what had happened. Well, not exactly what happened, just something that they would believe.
"Hello, 911, what's your emergency?"
Well, my emergency is that I was coming home from a party, and then suddenly, for some reason, the Uber driver had gone insane and he'd driven us into a tree. So, please help us. At first, they said their suspicions on me, no surprise there. But the premise was wiped out when the Uber driver woke back up, babbling the same shit he'd been babbling in the car. What's even more strange is that nobody got any answers out of him. He remained in a petrified, incoherent state. They tested him for drugs, alcohol, nothing. Eventually, he was whisked away for some psychological tests. While I was in the hospital getting treated for my minor head wound, a detective visited me and he told me that there were signs of a break-in in my house, called in at around 3:50 a.m. The window in my attic had been smashed and all the doors in my house, which also includes my front door, had been left wide open. In the morning at 7 a.m., I went back and looked everything over. Yeah, it was indeed a mess. My PlayStation 5 and laptop were on the ground. All my figures, including my Godzilla collectibles, were taken off the shelves in my room and were all over the floor of my living room. My Christmas tree had all its ornaments torn off of it, including the star on the tree, as the ornaments and the star were lying on the floor along with my figurines. As I looked over to the kitchen, my fridge was open, with milk spilled on the floor and with cookies scattered everywhere in the kitchen. But with all that said and seeing the entire damage, nothing had actually been taken. And apart from a window in the attic, along with the many shattered cookies on my kitchen floor, along with the milk stains, nothing really needed to be fixed either. My PlayStation 5, my laptop, the ornaments, my action figures, all my Godzilla figures, hell, even the Christmas tree itself. Everything was perfect condition, like if nothing had happened. I looked as if whoever was here in the process was stealing my shit and eating my food when they dropped everything, made a mess, ran out of the front door, leaving all the doors open. That was the law enforcement's conclusion anyway. Not very logical if you ask me, but logic's something that I expect at this point. I have a feeling that something else happened. Something far worse.